All right, so we're here today with Thomas Cussins. Thomas Cussins is the owner of Ineffable Music. It was founded in 2006. We did Trevor Hall with him here at Mulcahy's, and we loved it. It was a great show, and we look to do more with Thomas, and we're just very happy you could talk to us today on the podcast. So thanks
Oh,
for
well, thanks
being
for
here.
having
So I guess we'll go all the way back to the past. How did you found Ineffable Music? How did it get started? You want to give us a little preview on that?
For sure. I'll try to make it quick, but I was renting apartments to pay for school at UC Santa Cruz and rented one to a guy who was like, I'm good at music. I got lots of friends, but I can't get a show.
Hmm.
And I was like, how hard can it be to get a show? Like, that's crazy. I'll get you a show. So I started calling the clubs around town that I'd been to shows at, and nobody would give me a show. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Like somebody's got to give me a show. And eventually we found one at an off the beaten path club. Um, Through the show, all my friends came out. It was great. Had a blast. Got addicted to it. Through a second show, like half my friends came. Through a third show, like none of my friends came. And I was like, oh, okay, now I got to book bands that actually have their own fans.
Yeah, yeah. You
Um,
can only hit on the friends
and
so much.
you're right, yeah, the favor, they're like, okay, dude, we did the favor, you're
Mhm.
good now. So um, then I was able to parlay that into an internship at the Catalyst Club in Santa Cruz, where I started in January 2007. And actually, we still work at the Catalyst to this day, handling all the talent buying. Um, so that was the beginning of the career and the love for live music.
That's
Nice.
awesome. Thomas, just for anyone who obviously isn't in this industry or like familiar with like the role of booking, like back in those times that you just described, like why don't you think people were, giving the acts a chance? Like what do you think mainly stands in the way of like booking, like from the venue's perspective, from the booking agent's perspective? What were the kind of challenges back then?
Well, I was just calling saying, "Hey, give me a show." I didn't have any stats. I didn't have any history. And for us in the talent buying part of our business, it's very important if somebody's reaching out that's not from a major agency or someone that we've worked with before, that in as short a space as possible, we hear why people are going to come out, why it's a good show. Because if you believe it or not, 8 or 9 out of every 10 music links I get
Yeah.
is actually pretty good. Like if they've taken the time to find out who I am out of everybody, like they usually
Right.
have pretty good music. So it's like you got good music is kind of like a given. And then what else? What else are you doing? So if you can say really briefly, like, hey, I played this bar over here and I brought 300 people out at a $15 ticket, and I'm going to do XYZ to get folks out for this one. It makes it a lot easier than this long-winded thing that doesn't have anything to do with any real stats.
Yeah. Yeah, we get a million emails a day. Like, hey, my band, we just started. Like, we played the library. There was like 10 people. I think we're ready for Mulcahy's. I'm like, it's 1,600 people. Like you gotta, start slow, or at least have, like you said, some type of record of drawing well before you could play a bigger place.
Right. And you're a lot easier to find than I am. My email's not on these places. You got to like actually look for me.
Well, that's good. It makes it worth it then.
So did you start Ineffable while you were still an intern at the Catalyst, or like which came first?
It was started. Me and my partner Igor, who was my roommate in college, we started it before I even got the internship at the
Oh
Catalyst.
wow.
So
Wow.
And
like,
what did
this
it
is so much fun. Literally, the first show, we're like, this is great. Let's make this a company. You
What was the
know.
first show?
It was a local group called the Warlords, that unfortunately no longer exist. And But yeah, I mean it was great. That was the lead singer was the guy I rented the apartment to. So, uh, but then I did have a stint learning the actual business, at Paradigm, working for an agent named Aaron Pincus. And that's where I really learned like all the various spinning plates and how everybody, how small the business is and who everybody is in it and how each thing connects. And getting to work on that other side where you're selling the shows instead of buying them really helped me understand deal structure, and how you could have a situation where everybody's winning, right? It's not a zero-sum game. Because the first shows, when I was buying my first shows, it was pretty much they were trying to get as much money as they could out of me, not thinking about any long term. And I was, trying to see how I could do the same, basically. Like, how could I pay as little and, make as much as I can possibly do? And we're just kind of clashing and doing that, as opposed to figuring out what's going to work for everybody to make this a lifelong business and allow everybody's boat to rise with the tide.
Yeah, you want to keep the relationships going, good for everyone, like you said. So you worked for Pincus at Paradigm. He's pretty legendary. How long were you there?
I was there for almost 2 years. After about a year, I was like, Pincus, this is amazing. And, it's the hardest thing I've ever done, but I've learned so much. I can tell you this is not for me. I'll stay as long as you need till we find somebody else. But I knew very quickly that, he's putting in 18-hour days grinding. And I didn't even want to go see a concert anymore after those days, because it was so much hard work on the phone and email. And it was really draining. And I was like, man, I missed the show. The whole reason I'm doing this was to go to shows.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out how I could go to shows and make a job out of it. So, but it was the hardest thing I ever did in my whole life. Second hardest thing was managing Citizen Cope. But both of them I learned so much from, even though they were so difficult jobs. But they both work at such high levels and are so amazing at what they do that it was invaluable. Couldn't have got a better experience from grad school or anything.
Yeah, you got to learn that corporate world a little bit too. So who was your first client at Ineffable?
Collie Buddz. Collie in 2007. He was the only act that both our friends that liked hip hop and our friends that liked reggae both liked the same act. And that was really exciting for us. And so we had hit up his manager at the time, Dino DeValier, who was an A&R at Sony and who had signed like Lil Wayne and Cash Money and done all sorts of legendary things. And we hit him up and we were able to get some shows. And we did the shows and then it went really well. Collie was super chill. The team was super chill. We vibed right away. And then Sony decided to put out like the wrong second single, or, they guessed wrong, and then they stopped pushing it. And so we brought Collie out again, and he was like, man, I'm going to have to go back to construction. Like,
wow.
That's it for me. They're not pushing me anymore. I'm like, oh man, we can tour. We can sell merchandise. Like, this will work. We'll just put up the music for free on Napster. Don't even worry about it. Like, put the new stuff up. It'll work. Excuse me. And, when we tried that, I booked him a tour myself, which was, I just was calling places, and if they wouldn't give us a show, we would rent a venue and do it ourselves. Wow. And so we had Collie for 29 shows in 31 days on the West Coast. And I didn't know things like artists need days off. I didn't know things like you shouldn't play like 4 venues that are like 30 miles apart, each of them,
Yeah.
So again, just learning, and luckily he rolled with us, and over time that transitioned into management, and we still manage his career to this day.
That's awesome. Wow. It sounds like you kind of saved his career too.
No, I wouldn't say that. I think it was just that we were, because we didn't understand that money could be made from music, because these first people we were talking to all had major label deals, and so they weren't making any money on their music. So we're like, well, dude, we get music, we know people that get music from Napster, LimeWire, whatever. Like, just as you finish a song, let's just throw it out there. Just get it out to the college kids through those services. It's not like you're making any more or any less than you used to. We didn't know things about like publishing, or we didn't know any of the rules. But the cool thing through that was we were setting ourselves up for streaming without even knowing it.
Yeah, ahead of the game.
So as streaming became something that was, paid out, we had all our music ready to go and all out there already. So it went from these artists making nothing on the music to making something. And in some cases, that something actually was pretty good.
Nice. Is when you did this with Collie Buddz, is that when you felt like you were onto something and you could grow this, or you were just going with the flow, or did you have this in mind when you were booking these shows with Collie Buddz?
Definitely just going with the flow. I mean, that first tour, we had guaranteed, that big tour, we guaranteed Collie $100,000. We said, listen, we're going to give you $100,000. We're going to pay for everything. Just give me a month of your time. And we didn't have $100,000.
Yeah.
So we were definitely banking on like everything working. It was like, it's either this or I'm out of the business. But it worked. And, actually Pincus came to one of the shows.
Nice.
And through that gave us a tour with Collie, opening for Slightly Stoopid in Cypress Hill in amphitheaters in the summer. And that helped get Collie out in front of way more people, and also was the catalyst for getting me the job working for Pincus.
Awesome.
How did the tour like pan out? Were you responsible for like the marketing in each location? Like, did you have any help on the venues parts? I'm just thinking it was like a completely different landscape back then. It wasn't, even though it was like, I'm guessing, MySpace days, it wasn't exactly the same as like throwing it up on Instagram, right? How did you like go about that undertaking?
Totally. I mean, in fact, we had a MySpace page for Ineffable, but not a website. So that tells you. Yeah, no, I mean, it went well. I don't think I'd still be here talking to you now.
Right. Was it like flyers, like Men on the Ground, that type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I just found one of them. I was at a venue and I found one of the old flyers from like 2000. Yeah, just like sitting there, which was great. But no, we were, we would go to Reggae on the River and flyer everybody, at the festival there, and go to college. I mean, yeah, it was flyers and direct messages and things like that. That was mainly how we were doing it. A little bit of radio stuff, but for the most part, we were just bootstrapping it person to person.
And just on that subject, but when I was reading up on you, I found like this interview in which you said this quote, and I just wanted to ask you about it. You said that it was in terms of like the Santa Cruz music scene, and you said that certain types of shows work in different rooms. And I was wondering if you could just like talk us through that, like from how you felt about it now, how you felt about it then, how you feel about it now. Like, what is your kind of philosophy on that? Like, starting out with Collie Buddz, what would you look for when you were looking at these venues? Was it a matter of size? What were you kind of taking into account? And again, with that quote, what did you kind of mean with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think at that point, I was just looking for a room that would accept the show. But, now we're, you don't want to take like a metal show that's going to be all kids and put it in a theater that's seated. Right. So, we generally, what's best is if you can find the venue that's going to sell out for the artist, but is the right, there's not going to leave too much demand on the table, but you're going to leave some demand on the table. And the ticket price is right, so that you can kind of, again, you're not pricing out the audience, right, but you are able to sell. And there's, it's definitely hard to wean a room to a new audience. Like if you throw your first country show, like we have a venue in Berkeley called Cornerstone now, and there's no real country station in the Bay. Like you got to go north or south to get the good country stations. Mm-hmm. And so like the first couple of country shows have been tough for us in Berkeley. I know the country crowd is here around the outskirts, in Lafayette and Walnut Creek and stuff, but we're not really reaching them. Mm-hmm. And I know if we do it over time that we will. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like if you know the audience is there, you still have to get people used to coming to it. And the hardest thing I've seen is when you have a room that's known for like just a lot of cover shows, mm-hmm, and lower price tickets, and isn't being booked as actively on the national touring acts. And so for those rooms, it does take, there's a little learning curve. We had that in Petaluma where we had to really just, we said, listen, we know Americana's going to work here. We just got to go at it for a while and try some volume. Mm-hmm. I'm a big believer in volume in the booking game. Like once you have a lot of shows, it will you have more emails, more people are used, the room is warm, more people are used to coming to see that type of thing there that they like.
Right.
And
You're like
also,
training the audience to that.
yeah, and also if you guess wrong, it's a lot easier to bear the brunt of that if you had 9 good shows before it, as opposed to if you guess wrong and you didn't have any shows, then it hurts more.
Yeah, it's funny you said that about country. We started doing country, and like you said, we just took a chance, and we must have just got balls lucky, or Long Island must have just been ready for it, because like we came out of the gates hot. But like I know, like you said, that doesn't happen. But it's funny, like you said too, once you start doing the audience, like the shows become easier to sell. You start to see the same crowd, and like you said, people start to know you as a place that does country or reggae or whatever.
Right. You're in the right orbit kind of thing.
Well, I would guess at Mulcahy's, it's like some of your existing audience was already country fans,
Yeah.
as opposed to like you were trying to bring some new people to the room with those shows, and maybe you hadn't had the country. That's when it works like that. Either your room is just people just love going and they're always looking for an excuse to go there,
Yeah.
which is probably a part of it for you as well. And then also, I bet people that were coming to some of the parties or the dance things, they were into country and they're like,
Yeah.
oh my God, like this is great. I already love this.
Yeah, now
Right.
they're right in your backyard kind of thing. I think Jones Beach being like 10 minutes away actually helped us with country, because they were getting like Kenny Chesney, Zach Brown, and it's literally in the same town. So like you said, maybe the country people were already here.
Well, that's what John Anthony, who's Kenny Chesney's program director on No Shoes Radio, that's what he told me. He's like, man, me and Kenny, we always say it, country and reggae music, they meet at the beach.
Definitely. Definitely.
That's interesting.
It's my 2 favorite too, so it makes sense, yeah. So it's funny, I'm in the business and I still don't get it exactly. Like, what is the difference between your company and management company versus like the booking agents companies?
So Ineffable is a vertically integrated live and music business.
Mm-hmm.
So there's many different parts. But if you're thinking of talent buying, the person that works on behalf of the venue to bring the band to the venue, and booking, that's the person that works for the band to sell the band to the venue, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if it was a commodity, like if we're talking about corn instead of concerts, the agents are the sellers of the commodity, and the talent buyers are the buyers of the commodity. And then managers represent the artist's businesses, like the overall business of the artist, which really breaks down into 3 businesses. So if you're an artist manager, you're essentially a CEO of or president, a sub CEO to the artist of 3 separate businesses: a live touring business, a recorded music business, and a merchandise branding business. So managers, there's a reason that promoters become managers, because they kind of they're booking bands into venues, and then all of a sudden someone locally starts to do well, and you're there and you see how they did in terms of the ticket sales, so you already know one of their businesses. You can see what worked in the merch side since you're there live. And a lot of promoter managers, then they need to learn the music, how to work on the music side of the business. But they got the other 2 businesses dialed.
Yeah, so does every management company like do label and stuff, or is that unique to Ineffable?
It's certainly not unique, but it's not every single one. But like C3, for example, who's one of the biggest festival promoters with Lollapalooza and things like that. They also have a management company that does very well. So that's very common. And then the label side, people can have that as well. But it's just such a small business that it's all so incestuous. Yeah. Like everybody, is working on 3 different sides of the same thing, and scratch. It does. That's why it's always great when somebody disrupts it and comes in and proves a different model. And just it comes out of totally left field, a different way of thinking. Because otherwise, when it's so small, we get stuck in our habits. So we need people to shake it up and keep pushing the music forward.
Yeah. You talked about festivals. Yeah. So what is your guys' connection with that? Do you just put the talent there, or do you run the overall festivals ever?
Yeah, so we're partners in a few different festivals. The 2 most prestigious, Levitate Music Festival outside of Boston, which is in its 8th year and is sold out again next year with Jack Johnson. And that I got introduced there because a band I managed, Stick Figure, who's actually like the second most streamed reggae artist by total consumption right now, behind Bob Marley.
Nice.
Wow.
Stick Figure is from that town, and so he introduced me to the guy that owned the surf shop and was starting the event and had it going.
I feel like this isn't picking up right.
All right, is it better now? Sorry, we lost you for a second.
The audio went a little.
I think we're good now. I think it was just our headphones. You know?
Mine and fine, it was just, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Thomas.
So that's Levitate, and then we're partners in Cali Roots Festival, which is out here in Monterey, and it's like the premier American reggae festival in the country.
Yeah,
we for various, those festivals we're partners in the actual festival, so all aspects of it. But we also do talent buying for festivals and events where we are not throwing the event, but we will book the bands for the event because we're doing so much volume that we can get the events better deals than if they went and did it themselves. And we can also just make it smoother and make just help people focus on what they do, which is throwing the event.
Nice. New York and Long Island are dying for one of those festivals, by the way. If you ever if you need a new location, I know it would kick ass here. There's nothing like that around here, really.
If you have a spot in Long Island for 15,000, you let me know, because that would be great. I think the city proper would be too difficult.
Yeah.
The various, there's just so much tied in. I always try to avoid like major markets.
Yeah.
In general, because there's so much competition and so many great companies that kind of just excel in major markets that it's harder to kind of to jump in, especially as an independent that's trying to do something. But you go out there to the beach, and maybe people in the city write it off and they're not thinking about it as much. But I know that's where everyone that loves this type of music, that's where they actually live, or that's where they want to go.
Yeah, of course, for sure. Yeah, the cities are too expensive. There's too much traffic. Too much.
It's not the beach.
Yeah. So, like, a couple questions about the business too. Like, what are we at? 23 minutes. I won't hold you too much longer, if you don't mind. But
good.
Like, what do you look for your clients? Like, what's ideal for them? Like, is festivals still a big thing? Because I know like they usually get a little bit more money for that. Like, what is your main goal for your clients?
Well, I don't know if this is what I'm supposed to say, but really I just want them to, have like a nice life balance, and live how they want to live. Mm-hmm. So like if they have that drive to get as big as possible, then I'm stoked, and then we want to parlay festival looks into hard ticket looks, and then try to, ratchet up the position where their billing is on the festival flyer, and then the size room. Sell out the rooms, go play the festival, get some new fans, really, go then follow up with another room, release some new music, keep building in each market, hitting the market at the appropriate intervals if it's every year, or which can be adjusted up or down depending on the stage of the band's career. But yeah, for me, it's like, hey, if you're streaming enough and you own your music and you're making a good living, and you don't want to be touring 120 dates a year, and you'd rather be, in the studio or hanging out at the beach, then your career is what it is. And one thing I've really learned is that fame is like a really difficult thing.
Yeah.
When people get famous, it's very hard to be happy, I think. And I wouldn't wish fame on my worst enemy.
Yeah.
It sounds miserable to me.
Yeah, I wouldn't like it at all, I don't think so either. You hear a lot of stories like Kevin Hart and Joe Rogan and them talk about, like, you can't even go out to dinner, so that does not sound good.
I'm sure it obviously is an advantage, but in terms of like genre and stuff, like for a business like Ineffable, obviously you guys are very like genre specific. Do you think that you could like apply it? Do you think Ineffable could ever like branch out genre wise? Is that something that you would consider? Do you think you could pull it off? And does like the genre come from your personal love of like music? Is that kind of what what directed that?
So I'll just say, first of all, mood over genre.
Okay.
So that we're looking for mood over genre all the time. No, I mean we book country, Americana, heavy metal, rap, hip hop, R&B, everything, at the venues. Our management company and label is generally reggae specific, because that is the music we love, and that's the area where we had a foothold because we believed in it early enough that the scene wasn't as big. But no, I mean, Trevor's not a reggae artist, and we've done really well with him. And we co-manage a band called Ripe, which is a pop act, and they do really well, and the same things apply. The same steps apply even if you're going after a different thing. But yeah, of course, we can move the needle more in the reggae space because we know everybody in that space. Yeah. But a lot of the foundational structural ways of running the three businesses I mentioned earlier apply to any artist in any genre.
Nice. So how did you and Stick Figure connect? Because they're obviously a huge band right now. They're one of my favorites, and they're probably, what would you say, they're the biggest on your management company?
Certainly. Yeah, I mean, an agent friend of mine, Patrick McAuliffe, had introduced me to them. I was booking a small festival in New Mexico, and he was telling me all about them. I booked him out there to come out and play. And then I show up in New Mexico. I go to the merch table, and there's somebody this is like 1,000-person festival. Yeah. A small little thing in the middle of nowhere. And there's somebody setting up this massive merch display and aligning all this great merch. And I'm like, who's this guy? And it was Scott. It was Stick Figure. That's and awesome. He's just taking real pride in how everything looks and everything like that. And I watched the show, and I thought it was really good. And he gave me a copy of Burial Ground, which had just come out. And when I got home, I put it in my car because cars still had CD players back then. And I listened to it 93 times in a row. Wow. Start to finish. I hadn't heard something that flowed as well all the way through since Collie Buddz' self-titled record. And then I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is so good. And I started calling everybody I knew in the business. And only a couple people knew who he was. Most did not know. And yet he had already sold via iTunes and hand-to-hand 50,000 total copies of all of his albums at that point. So I was like, wow, here's someone with a real fan base that's actually selling copies of his record that people don't know. So that means there's a huge upside. It's not like everybody already knew him and this is the level he's at. Yeah. It was nobody knows, and yet there's already this base. So I called him up. I said, man, you got to come to Oakland. We have to meet. I have to work for you, dude. He didn't do it all himself then. He had the agent, but he was managing his own career. We've been working together ever since then. That was 2013.
They really are. Yeah, they're the best. That is cool. You got them so young like that. It's so funny. I'm not ass kissing you, but I swear to God, on my iTunes this year, it was Spotify gives you the artist. Your top artist. It was Trevor Hall and then Stick Figure. I was like, oh, I got to tell Thomas that. He'd be very proud.
That's great. I mean, the thing with Stick Figure is even though, still to this day, not that many, your average person doesn't know who Stick Figure is. Yeah. But of the fans, they consume a lot. Mm-hmm. So if you see the number of monthly listeners to the number of total plays, yeah, it's an outrageous ratio. Each person that listens to Stick Figure listens to a lot of Stick Figure.
Yeah. That's true. You said that because no one listens to albums really anymore. But I listen to Set in Stone and just put the whole album on. The whole album is good. It's very, very rare. You could just chuck an album on, even on Spotify and stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's part of Scott's genius is he writes everything himself, records everything himself, plays every instrument. Has an amazing band that plays with him live and then comes in and does bits and pieces. But in general, he's crafting every second by working on it over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's spending sometimes thousands of hours on one individual song.
Wow.
And that's, I think, the level that you need to be at now to really craft something that's timeless and works at that level.
Yeah. What does a typical day-to-day look like for you as president of Ineffable these days, and everything it's achieved? What's like a typical day for the president of Ineffable?
That's a great question. Well, I think the two clients that I handle management like directly on are Stick Figure and Trevor Hall. So I'm first and foremost like checking in if there's anything I need to work on in those worlds. Then kind of bouncing between the various departments. So the talent buying business, seeing how our talent buyers, which we have a great team, Casey Smith and Natasha Duran, who do amazing work on the talent buying side here. I'm checking in with them, making sure everything's flowing, checking in with venue stuff. We're building out a new venue in Ventura, California right now. So got a lot of steps going on that. Kind of checking in with the various businesses, checking in with the label team, see what releases we have coming up, and then trying to ensure that everybody that no balls are being dropped, but it's all about the team, really. I mean, everybody does such good work, and we've had so many people that have come through Ineffable over the 15 years that the folks here are really just so good at what they do, and they really love it. And so really I don't have to do that much actual stuff because everybody's just killing it.
That's a great
I need to make sure that it all connects, and the dots really connect. And but I tell you, man, some days I just really miss going to college campus and putting up posters.
Well, that being said, that was going to be my next question: is what's your favorite part of your job?
There's nothing like standing, at a festival that you worked on or at a show for a client, and just seeing that moment where all the work that went into it for a year or whatever amount of time, and then you got the whole crowd just in this kind of lockstep with the artist, and there's just that vibe that you feel that you can only feel live.
Yeah, for sure.
And in some of those moments, for 2 or 3 seconds, I can actually feel happiness. And then it's back to being a miserable music industry executive after that.
That's what I missed the most in the pandemic. In the pandemic, we were still open, but you couldn't do shows. So you're dealing with all the bullshit and all the nonsense, especially in the pandemic, and the finances. But I wasn't getting those show moments, when a big show comes out hot. That's what we live for, like you just said. So yeah, it was tough not having that, and I'm happy it's back for sure.
It was really hard, man. It was the highs of the show, not having those really caused myself and a lot of people to reevaluate what we're doing. And
not to get bogged down in that subject, but what did you again, without getting too kind of deep and bogged down, what did you kind of do in that year at Ineffable? How did you kind of plan ahead? Did you kind of just go on full pause for a bit and regroup, or were you able to kind of plan for the future and kind of get as much as you could done?
Well, there was the beginning part where there was this kind of survival instinct,
right?
Which is just I have a responsibility to everybody that works here and to the artists to make sure that they got their jobs and they're making money. So there was that initial just, hey, we got to figure out whatever we got to do to make this thing work. Yeah. And we put a lot of resources into the label because releasing music, people had time to write new music and collaborate. So we really tried to make a lot of collaborations happen between artists. And luckily, for our artist clients, because most of them own a good chunk of their own music by now, they still had money coming through from that. So they weren't in the tough position. And we've always focused heavily on the merchandise business. So our artists weren't in as tough a position as some other artists, especially major label ones that don't have money from their music coming. And the ones, one of the silver linings we kept finding these was that really high-end people in the business had more time available for once.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was great. I was able to get access to some amazing people that previously wouldn't have had time to take my phone call. And because of that, we got some great projects going. 2 new venues under our belt in that time. And it's generally, I think, for our business, although it was really tough, I think overall we were able to make it into a positive.
Yeah.
Very
So
cool.
it's funny. Do you see a change at all in like the booking world? Like obviously you still use booking agents, but is there a trend a little bit of the management company taking on some more of the booking role direct?
You see that a few times, like if it's like occasionally, but it doesn't usually work for very long because agencies have such a monopoly on the big festivals.
Yeah.
And frankly, like there's unlimited things for a manager to be doing at any point. And agents, because they're all talking about all the shows and the opportunities all the time.
Yeah.
It's just, I've never seen a situation. I'm sure there's 1 or 2, especially at like really high levels where, there's just nothing more that can be done. But almost without fail, having an agent in place is worth it because frankly, even if I were to book 90% of the shows myself, those other 10%, which are going to be really good looks or really good money, it's worth it. Then why wouldn't I have the agent on to also to handle the work on those other 90%? They just paid for themselves on the 10%.
Yeah.
That they make 10%. They got the 10% extra cool shows, and that paid for their work on the entire other 90%. And frankly, they're probably going to do better than me on most of those 90% anyway. So I'm although I don't like middle people in general, I generally try to go direct to the source. I think the role of the agent is a vital one in the live music ecosystem.
Nice. And like when the agent brings you a tour or some venues, like I'm just curious from a venue point of view, like what do you look for that venue? Or like do you just trust the agent, say like, hey, this is the tour?
I mean, we're trying to do volume, so we definitely try to, there is a room and an offer that works for almost any act that's being delivered to us by a major agency.
Yeah.
So, it's just about figuring out what that is. I hate passing on shows.
Mm-hmm.
I would much rather find a deal that's going to work for everybody and find a way to make the show happen and work with the band. And you never know who somebody's going to be. And you also want to be easy, because we're an independent company. So if big agents are hitting us up and giving us a chance on all their bands, we want to roll with them. And that's where the volume thing helps because it's not as big of a deal to whiff on one,
Yeah.
I'm sure we do try to win 9 out of 10, but I think that missing on that 1 out of 10 is really important to being able to get the other 9 really good ones and to develop a really strong business overall. Just don't want to whiff on too many of them though.
Yeah, that's not good. And also just for us to learn, like what feedback do you hear from venues that is good and what's bad? Like what to do and what to avoid kind of thing.
In regards to what?
Like, say Mulcahy's, like, or another place you book, like, what kind of feedback have you heard from a band like Stick Figure? Like, oh, that place was great. They did X, Y, and Z. Is there anything that like the bands or yourself like really appreciate? And is there anything you guys like hate when the venue does this kind of thing?
You froze for a second there.
Did you hear me at all?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, no, I got you again. I think from the band perspective, it's really about a good quality advance first of all, so the tour manager's happy, and then making sure that every person has to get off the bus kind of feels at home since it's their home for the day.
Yep.
I know you guys do a great job of that at Mulcahy's, where everybody's like,
Thank
this
you.
is the staff cares about this show, And they clearly want us to, want us to feel good about the show and want to take care of what we need. Like there's if you're not Red Rocks, if you're Red Rocks, you can do whatever you want and people will be happy to come. The promoters do a great job anyways, but they'd be happy to come there anyways because it's beautiful, right?
Yeah.
If you are the Chicken Box in Nantucket, the reason that everybody wants to come back there every year and do underplays at a 300 cap bar is because they show up, they're picked up from the ferry, they're taken out for a great, lobster dinner. Wow. They're taken out on a boat on the water. They're treated like royalty. And so that, it's like, hey, this is somewhere I want to go. Yeah. And then the band is telling the managers, hey, I'm playing there.
Nice.
That's nothing better than that, right? Yeah. And I think if people show up and there's nobody there, nothing in the green room, you have no idea the sound, no one's being nice to the sound technicians that come off the bus. Yeah. There's inflexibility. There's too many options these days of where to play. Mm-hmm. People don't need that. So.
I'm glad you gave us a little bit of a compliment there. Yeah, I take pride in trying to, it is their home for the day, and this is my home. I got stitches on the corner of the bar when I was 2. I want people to be comfortable here, and being on the road doesn't seem easy at all. So I want them to be able to relax, eat, drink, take a shower, whatever they want to do. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, Trevor specifically said, because somewhere like Mulcahy's, they're like, okay, there's quality production, but the room's not what you expect as a normal touring act at the bar, right? So, as Trevor came in, he's like, man, everything was amazing. Everything was great. The staff treated me fantastically. So the whole thing is, those little things, if layout is different than people expect, it could throw off the artist, but it's so easy to overcome that and have them focus on the good things, good production, the good quality stage, the fact that if it's just not what you would normally see, it doesn't make it bad, right?
Yeah.
It actually works. So I think that the way that you guys handle it and the way that folks like Packy at the Chicken Box handle it, it really wins. That's how you win the day.
Cool. Good to know. All right, a couple more, then we'll let you go. What is where do you see Ineffable? What is the dream scenario for you? And do you have a dream client you've been dying to sign? If you can't talk about it, I understand. But where do you see the future for you?
To be honest, my whole career, I was always like, okay, how can we build to the next step? How can we take the next step? What do we need to do to be able to provide more value to our clients? And right now, maybe it's because of the pandemic or whatever, I really feel very happy with what we have.
Yeah.
And I just genuinely want to do a good job for the things we have. And I want to just focus on that. It's the first time in 15 years that I've ever felt like, hey, let me just work on this. I don't need to think about what's the next biggest move.
No, that makes perfect sense because you plan things out and then something like a pandemic happens. You're like, why was I even worrying about X, Y, and Z in 5 years of planning? Because you really don't know what's going to happen.
100%. And, we get to work in music that's all I wanted to do anyways, not have to get a regular job.
Yeah, it's not like a boring accountant or something like that. One thing too, how do you find new clients and do people send you suggestions all the time? You got to check this guy out. How does that work, and how do you balance, a lot of spam, for lack of a better word, for real talent?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's earlier in relation to the booking. If somebody sends me something, it's usually pretty good music already off top. So then it's just what else is going on for them? Is their friend a really good videographer, and their uncle is, the president of some company that could help, open some doors, and they produce their own music, they produce their own music videos. They have a recording studio. This person already likes them. They already sell the tickets here. It's looking at all those different aspects. And, of course, every once in a while you hear something or you see something where it's just, undeniable. and then you just want to work. We just want to be in its orbit because it's great and you believe in it, and regardless of anything else, you don't need any of that other stuff. But no, I mean, I just keep my eyes and ears open, try to listen to what everybody sends me, try to respond even if I don't have the bandwidth or the drive right now to work on it. But it has to work for everybody because management specifically is like a marriage, and it really needs to be a right fit culturally, and workflow wise and demeanor, and otherwise it's not even if you can make some money together, it's not worth it.
Cool. Thank you. Anything else, Rube?
Question we ask everyone.
Yeah, you want to go for it? Last one, we promise.
So yeah, promise this is the last one. So this is something since we started this that we ask everyone. I guess you're one of our only guests who haven't been to Mulcahy's yet, so I guess we'll let you pick the venue also. But basically, if you were to hold Thomas Fest, we always ask every guest for a headliner, a supporting act, and then 3 guests at your VIP table. And I'm super interested in your one. It doesn't have to be, anyone on your label. It can be dead or alive, anything at all. Yeah. But we'd love to know.
No budget, and they could be dead or the musicians could be dead or alive, and the people at your VIP table could be dead or alive.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna just be right down the pike here and get have a Bob Marley show I never got to see live. And, we have stick figure support because then I do a good job. That's me doing a good job as a manager.
Love that,
so,
yeah.
That'd be great. The VIP table, 3 people VIP table. It's corny, but I say my wife and my 2 daughters.
Love that.
Get them out there so they can see Bob Marley and know what it's all about.
Very nice. You're the first person that, by the way, that have said their wife. So, true gentleman. Everyone else, take note. Everyone else we asked, I was like, are they going to say their wife? But you're the first. There you go, Thomas. You win the points today. So, thank you again. I know
Let's get a recording of this sent to her, please.
Yeah. You can show it to her. I'll send you the
That'll
YouTube
be the
link.
highlight.
Yeah. You got to be extra nice. Whatever your wife's name, sorry. So, Tom, thank you for talking to us today. I'm sure you're super busy. We're big fans of you and your label and management and everything like that. So we're excited to be talking to you.
I lost you again, but
no problem. Just thanks again for talking to us.
Thanks, Tim and Ruby. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, we'll talk soon, and I hope we do every band on your management together, all right?
Sooner or later, I'm coming to Mulcahy's.
You gotta come. You know what you could do? You could put stick figure here, and then I'll give you that VIP table if you want.
All right. Get the 2 of you there. All right. Bye.
Bye, Thomas.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us in Employees Only, presented to you by Mulcahy's Pub and Concert Hall. Please be sure to follow us on Instagram at Mulcahy's Pub. The other socials aren't as important because I put most of my time and effort into the Insta.